will be surprised to know that there are more Chinese cities connected to Kathmandu through airways than India. From Kathmandu, you can only fly to New Delhi, sometimes once or twice in a week to Mumbai, sometime in Calcutta. Once upon a time, we used to have flight to Bangalore as well, but we don't have regular flights now. But with China, you can fly to Lhasa, Chengdu, Guangzhou, and few more places like we used to have with Xi'an, Kunming. We can fly. So there are more Chinese cities connected with Kathmandu.
Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Our very special guest today is Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. He's a research director at the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. His research focus also includes geopolitics of South Asia, insurgencies, terrorism, migration, radicalism, and ethnic conflicts. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
But today, we're not going to be talking about all those things that are high up on your resume. Today, we're going to be talking about connectivity with Nepal as part of, India's policy of acting east, looking east, and as well as land connectivity. So let's start right from the top, sir. Where do you see connectivity right now? I mean, in terms of land connectivity, is it the best it could be, or could it be worse, or could it be better?
Actually, if you look at connectivity in South Asia, our region is less connected than it was before the British left the region, because during the time of British, the whole subcontinent was one and there was proper connectivity. But after independence, the connectivity in the region is less connected. But what we have seen is that recently connectivity, more so cross-border connectivity, is being prioritized than in the past. If you look at Nepal and India, the countries on both sides, like the leaders on both sides, people on both sides, are demanding cross-border connectivity, be it rail, road, land, power lines, waterways, or even digital connectivity, like cross-payment of cross-border payment system and all. So due to this, even the words, like what you have seen is that in the past, the connectivity that was there had disappeared. Now they are coming into existence again. The example can be a cross-border railway network. In the past, we have railway connectivity from India to Nepal that disappeared, but now they are coming back. The first phase of railway connectivity between Nepal and India is complete. The other phases are under process. So that is one. Like we had proper connectivity in the past in the process, but after independence, the country started looking into themselves. So because of partition, new countries emerging, the cross-border connectivity disappeared. But now again, new era of economic development, countries are now demanding connectivity. So we can see that now there is desire for connectivity, and the countries are also prioritizing that. Before that, they used to prioritize more on political issues. There were very strong security focus. But now connectivity is getting proper focus. There is demand from all the countries, and there is also regional cooperation coming into place. So I think now it's in an upward trajectory.
Right. Just well, the interesting thing here is you mentioned that it has revived off late. Around what time do you think this whole thing, this revision began? I mean, was it 5 years ago, a decade ago? How long ago did this sort of fresh approach to connectivity begin?
I would say it's after liberalization, where India opened up, economy started playing an important role, where India emerged as an economic power. You can say post 1990 in both the countries. Like we got democracy in 1990 in Nepal, India opened up. So there was demand for better connectivity, economic development, all those. So that is the starting point. But the effect can be seen more in last one decade when Prime Minister Modi came to power. He speed up all the infrastructure projects, including cross-border connectivity. So in last 10 years, we can see that a massive, infrastructure around the region. So we can say that Prime Minister Modi, because of his Neighbourhood First policy, he emphasized most. But the seed of that whole development started during Manmohan Singh and even earlier. So we can't only give all the credit to the current government, but yes, what he did is he speed up the whole process because he accelerated the progress on connectivity, both internal and external, because there was a strong desire for greater economic development in the region, both internal and external.
Uh-huh. So, uh, Nepal, being a landlocked country, has been dependent on India for most of its trade and other things that go through. At the moment, how much of trade is actually, how much of import is actually via India? How much of Nepal's total imports is actually through India?
If you look at trade, like India is Nepal's largest trading partner. Around
Hmm.
60 70% of Nepal's total imports, sometimes even 80%, is from India. If you look at the
Right.
recent data of 2022, Nepal exported $956 million to India, which is almost 75% of Nepal's total export. Similarly,
Okay.
Nepal also imported $8.6 billion from India. So there's a huge
Hmm.
trade between both the countries. There is huge. Uh, Nepal is the largest trading partner for India. At the same time, there's huge export from India as well. So I think it's one of the largest trade in the region at the moment.
Hmm. So there was a time when, Nepal and India, people could just walk across without any paperwork, without any issues, not so long ago. Does that situation still prevail, or have the, restrictions become a bit tougher now?
Uh, the open border still exists. People from both the side can still cross the border without any hassles. But at times there are issues as the number of security persons from both the side has increased in last 2 decades. With few connectivity projects have disappeared, as I said, but few new have been revived. New initiative have taken place. For example, cross-border railway connectivity between Nepal and India has appeared, which had disappeared. At the moment, there are cross-border bus services. Many cities of India is connected with cities of Nepal. So it exists, but it is more securitized in one way. At times,
Hmm.
because of security concern, it's complicated, but it still exists. People can still cross the border without visa, without any passport, in a free and fair, without any obstacles.
Which is, I mean, a rare thing for a South Asian country, I suppose. Not many people, not no other country has that privilege in terms of
Yes,
being
of
able
course,
to
it's
cross like
rare.
this.
It's like it's rare in the world, not only in South Asia. Even like we talk about a European model, but when you compare Nepal India relation, the Europe do not meet that standard because Nepal and India do not only have open border; they have free movement of people. People can live in each other's territory without they can have economic cooperation, economic engagement. Cross border marriages are very intense. Uh, Apart from that, there are very unique relations between the both countries because Nepalese are serving the Indian security forces as Gorkha regiment. The chief of Nepal army is a chief of staff of Indian army and vice versa. So there are many unique features apart from that makes both the countries very unique.
Hmm. So you mentioned the Gorkhas and thing. I understand that there's been a little bit of concern over the recent Agniveer plans in India, over which I think Nepal actually stopped Gorkhas from coming into India to join. But in a broader sense, politically, does that impact connectivity?
No, these are two different things. Obviously, like with the new initiative that Indian government has taken of taking Agniveers through Agnipath scheme, it has complicated to some extent because I came to know that there is no new recruitment of Nepalese in the Gorkha regiment. What I believe is that this should continue because this makes the relation between Nepal and India very special because it's unique practice around the world and it's also strong soft power. It's the greatest soft power in Nepal that has bind both the countries together. So I think maybe Indian government can continue to recruit Nepali through Gorkha regiment, the practice that has been practiced till now. Maybe Agniveer can be practiced in India with the Indian citizenship because I think this Agniveer scheme should not complicate the engagement between Nepal and India in this sector. Uh, this has not influenced much on the connectivity project, because connectivity project is more of economic and political in nature, which has some impact on security, but it's not on directly on the Gorkha regiment recruitment process.
Hmm. But why I ask that is usually these kind of things take a political turn and then they start impacting other things as well. So you're saying there's really not been much impact in other terms.
Yes, the relationship between Gorkha and Nepal is very unique, which do not have direct impact of other political and economic issues that arise between the two countries. They are there, but it has not really touched this sector.
Hmm. So we used to have this treaty of peace and friendship. I think we signed it way back in 1950 or something. Then we used to have uh, India Nepal Intergovernmental Committee on Trade, Transit, and Cooperation for trade and economic relations. How powerful I mean, what is the status of that treaty now? Because there was talk of reviewing it, reviving it, and B, how powerful are these sort of organizations that help trade and things like that?
Actually, both the treaties that have talked about are the foundation of the relation of both the countries. 1950
Hmm.
Treaty of Peace and Friendship is the main that binds to both the countries together. That really explains how both the countries are interconnected in terms of policy, in terms of economy, in terms of social and all. 1950 Treaty is still active, but there are demands that it should be revised, or maybe new treaties should be brought into practice. The major issues in that treaty is the treaty Article 5, which says that Nepal should get permission from India if it want to import any of the weapons from third country, where Nepalese claim that it affects their sovereignty. Why should Nepal as a sovereign country uh,
Of course.
ask permission for that? Obviously, both
Hmm.
sides are right on that. Obviously, if Nepal want to import arms, uh, which can pose serious concern to any country's security, I mean, India has concern. It can't allow any other country to import or export arms to their territory. At the same time, Nepal says that it affects their sovereignty. So I think that can be taken care of. That both the sides should sit together and resolve that. Second demand that Nepal says that this is an unequal treaty because it was signed by the Indian ambassador and the Nepalese prime minister. There are two different hierarchy and all those. So there are demands for that, but what is the fact at the moment is that none of the political parties in Nepal till now have seriously moved it forward. They have not seriously raised that issue at the high level, discussions. So
Hmm.
it's still interactive. There are demands, but it's like more like a political demand than a realistic demand. Because if you ask them what really is the problem, how can we resolve, no parties are taking any strong stand on that. Uh, Again, in that whole treaty, Article 7 has some changes, because Article 7 says that the government of India and Nepal agreed to grant on a reciprocal basis to the nations of one country in the territories of other the same privileges in matter of residence, ownership of property, participation in trade and commerce, movement, and other privileges of similar nature. So, but at times what we have seen is that in recent times, Indians cannot have land ownership here. It was practiced in both the sides. Even in India, I think gradually very few Nepalese can easily get land ownership in India as well. So now things are getting complicated. Very few Nepalese can really get job in a higher position without any discrimination. So these kind of changes are being taken place. Even in Nepal, Indians are not allowed to work in government services. So these new changes has taken place in recent times, but treaty still exists. Again, transit treaty we still practice. So I think both these treaties are the foundation of the relation between both the countries, which are very important. With time, since it was signed in 1950 and 1960s, I think both the countries, if they are willing to negotiate, I think they should do that. And
Hmm.
new realities can be put into picture so that it can be practiced. But I think uh, they still are the foundation of their relations even today.
I see. But the other thing that I think there was some issue with some how would I say, territorial issues. But I remember it broke up recently because of, I believe, some Nepali currency note had some territory mark, which is sort of, what is that issue all about? If you could just explain it, whether or not that has any impact at all on the overall bilateral relationship? Because I'm assuming somewhere or the other it will have some impact.
Yes, Nepal and India has border dispute in Kalapani, Dipule, and Lipiadhura. I think both the sides should sit together and resolve it amicably. It is possible because both the countries enjoy very special relations, which is very unique. Uh, Otherwise, it can really complicate the issue that you have been talking about. Like few years ago, Nepal came with a new map. Now the same map is being used in the new 100 rupees note. So this issue has again flared up. So I think this will keep on coming unless we resolve this issue. So I think both the countries, when the relation are, when the political climate is quiet, calm, both the sides should sit together and resolve that. I think it is possible to resolve, as I said, because we enjoy very good relations. It's a very small territory which India would not, raise it in a very strong way. And second is that Nepal has been supporting India at different levels. Gorkha regiment are there fighting for Indian safeguarding Indian borders. So I think we have very cordial relations. We contribute to India's peace and security. India also supports in the security of Nepal. So I think we enjoy very special relations. So in that situation, two countries where India has a huge territory, Nepal is a small neighbor. I think they should not have this kind of territorial issues, which has remained since long. I think it is the right time. We have a very strong prime minister. I think both the parties should sit together, look at their maps, resolve the differences, because this will further strengthen the relations. Otherwise, as you know, there are political players which can use that in their benefit. Now, geopolitically, this region is very volatile, so that can really complicate the situation. So I think before it gets worse, I think both the sides should sit together to find a way out to it.
Hmm. How long has this thing been festering? I mean, has it been there since independence, or is it something new that has come up? This land issue.
It has come very strongly after 1960s, and then uh, it came in a very strong way only after the Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated a road in that region, which was during COVID. I think it was 19 or 20. So since then, it
Hmm.
has become a very huge political issue here in Nepal. Almost everyone is talking about it. There are lots of tweets, lots of map came. There was also discussion that the new maps should be in the textbooks of Nepal. Now it's coming to currency. So now things are getting in a different turn. I think before that, I think both the countries should sit together and finalize these issues.
I see. You mentioned arms and things that Nepal has the right to buy arms from anywhere it wants without having to seek permission, which for a sovereign country makes sense. But when you say arms, I suppose the only other country that would be nearby from which you can import would be China. So, how strong has China's influence been in Nepal of late? I believe it's been growing quite a lot. A and B, I believe that you now actually see street signs in sort of Mandarin. Is that right? In Kathmandu?
Yes, China is emerging. We all know that China has emerged as a global power. So when any country emerges as a power, they create a space around the world. Every country's neighbor is United States of America. Now it's China also emerging as every country's neighbor. So China has emerged as a power. It has created a space around the world. Second is that China also created a space around the world when traditional partners they fail to meet the desire, dreams, aspirations of the countries. Let me give you an example. Like for example, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka and India has good relations. So now, if Sri Lanka first came to India with Hambantota port, and India said it's economically not viable, or ABC region was given by India,
Right.
then China came into picture. So now Sri Lanka had the desire to develop Hambantota port, and then when India could not fulfill that, China came into picture. Same in Africa, many countries could not bring development to Africa, then Chinese went there. So that is how China is around the world. It has increased its presence in Nepal as well. Talking about signposts in Nepal, there is a very small tourist town called Thamel where there are lots of Chinese tourists. So it's you can see lots of Chinese characters. It's same in Thailand, which has huge number of tourists. So I think that is not very political in that sense, because if you go to Goa, I think lots of Russian characters are there. So it's only in Goa. It's not in other parts of India. So it's more
Right.
to have a friendly, tourist friendly environment. But coming back to your question, that China has come in a strong way in Nepal, and it's not only in Nepal; it's around the region, around the world, even in India. Like China and India has walked a long way. Obviously, the recent border standoff and all has complicated, but look at the trade you have. In terms of trade, like who are the largest economic partner of China? It's all their adversaries: US, Japan, India, Australia, Europe. They are the largest trading partner of China, so they have having strong economic engagement. Nepal is also looking for the same. Nepal is not looking for a strong political engagement, because we don't have we are two different political systems. All are democratic. We are democracy. All our democratic parties have good relation with Indian political parties. In fact, the communist parties of Nepal were all born in India. All the communist leaders, when they used to study in India, in
Of
West
course.
Bengal, in different universities, they created those
Hmm.
political parties and they have come. So the roots of political parties, the communist parties of Nepal, they take inspirations from the Indian political parties, not the Chinese Communist Party. So in terms
Right.
of economy, when the whole world is looking at China, including India, Vietnam, Philippines, who do not have very good relations, Nepal also see it as an opportunity that rising China, economically great power, is opportunity for many countries like India as well. Why can't we be left behind? So we are also looking for connectivity. We are looking for economic engagement. But on a political front, we have two different political system. We do not buy Chinese philosophy. We are far different in terms of culture, philosophy, and everything, even connectivity, the Himalayan barrier. In fact, we have China only on north. We have India on three sides. So even look at Broadway, engagement with India is three times more because we have India on three sides. So China is only
Right.
one fourth of the whole relation. So I think sometimes China Nepal engagement is exaggerated. At times it is fact. There are Chinese, as I said, they are a power. They have expanded their footprint. They have expanded the engagement. They have done in Nepal as well. But comparing it's too early. I think China should wait for another 100 years to have a comparison with Nepal-India relations.
Yes, one of the things that keeps striking me is that all these years, the main challenge against, direct sort of land connectivity between China and Nepal were the Himalayas. So, where are the sort of trading points that you get between China and Nepal now? What are the main points that have cropped up, and is there a railway line coming through and other things that are happening? How will that impact trade? At least, land thing, because north of Nepal, you would probably be looking at Tibet, and then for China to ship things all the way through Tibet into Nepal is going to be an expensive proposition. So,
Of
how does
course.
this trade work?
Yes, I mean even now the almost all of our trade takes place through India through seaports. With China, we have a through land port. It's very complicated, kind of very expensive because you just fly from Kathmandu to Lhasa. It's 1 hour Tibetan plateau. It's very tense mountain, so it's almost difficult to cross that terrain. But it's also not impossible because recently China has done a miracle in terms of infrastructure. They have Qinghai Railway from Beijing, Lhasa, and it has reached Sigaste, which is just 250 kilometers from Nepal border. Uh, it might take just a year or two to reach to the Nepal border, the Qinghai Railway. But again, from Nepal border to Kathmandu or to any major towns will take many years. That's why in Nepal, sometimes you can hear that Nepal and China should work for cross-border connectivity. Now, China did a feasibility study of having a railway from Nepal border to Kathmandu, Pokhara, and other towns. It will be very expensive, economically not so viable. But again, other alternatives are being sought out. So I think uh, the terrain is very complicated, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible because
Mhm.
the new technologies have come. So it is possible. But again, if you compare the level of trade that can happen through sea route and land route, is very difficult because you have a huge Tibet which is not so developed. That's why at times you can see that Chinese and Nepal are looking for new kind of investment, new kind of trade, which can take place between Tibet and Nepal. If you read a recent news, just a few weeks ago, it was said that now China want their provinces to interact with Nepal directly. For example, China want to have a deeper engagement between Lhasa, or you can say Tibet and Kathmandu, or Nepal, or Qinghai, or these regions, Kunming, Sichuan, and all. So they're looking for new initiatives. China has also putting lots of resources in these regions. So development on both sides are taking place. But again, it will not bring a huge change overnight. I think it's a 10-year, 20 years project. So it's a long wait to take place.
But well, that reminds me of an interesting story I heard, that there was a time when Indian companies used to dominate, let's say, uh, the telecom sector in Nepal, as in, the internet connections and all that. But I believe China has given a line, which apparently is cheaper, A, and B, and this is the more interesting part of it, is that apparently because the Chinese network is so, closed and censored, I believe they actually drew a line all the way from Hong Kong. Is that correct?
Yes, our internet also comes from India and China, Hong Kong line. Like recently, a week ago, Indian Nepalese Telecom has some issue with Airtel and Tata, so they blocked all the internet. So we had no internet for some time. At that time, we could only
Mhm.
get the Chinese internet. But the internet that comes to Nepal through Hong Kong is not a censored one. It's a infrastructure that comes from. They don't really censor the whole line. So
Right.
it's not that the internet there are two different internets, two infrastructure. One is through India, one is through Hong Kong. It's same internet, only thing is that two different service provider are there, so two different
Oh,
facilities
okay,
are
okay. That makes sense. The first
there.
one is, what would you define as the two main challenges that we have in terms of connectivity between India and Nepal? That's land connectivity. I'm talking about land, rail, air, because I believe there's been a request for one airline route which India has been holding on for some time. So all those things are there. B, how would you recommend personally that these issues be resolved?
Yes, it's a very interesting question because the cross-border connectivity from both the sides is taking place. For example, from India, we have railway, we have bus service from different cities, we have integrated check post. At the same time, Chinese are talking about railway connectivity to Nepal. There are huge number of Chinese cities connected with Kathmandu. You'll be surprised to know that there are more Chinese cities connected to Kathmandu through airways than India. From Kathmandu, you can only fly to New Delhi, sometimes once or twice in a week to Mumbai, sometime in Calcutta. Once upon a time, we used to have flight to Bangalore as well, but we don't have regular flights now. But with China, you can fly to Lhasa, Chengdu, Guangzhou, and few more places like we used to have with Xi'an, Kunming. We can fly. So there are more Chinese cities connected with Kathmandu. The reason is, of course, that they don't have land connectivity. With India, we have open borders, so it's like we really don't need that. But still, there are opportunity for Nepal to connect with major cities of India through air links. Now,
Hmm.
the challenges, I think there are three major challenges. First is security, because India and China don't enjoy very good relations, so it's not very easy for Nepal to open up its connectivity project with China or India. It's not very easy. Nepal has to face a geopolitical challenge because, for example, if Nepal really want to have a railway with China, it's not very easy. We have to take Indian concerns. India has huge concern because of China. So, say geopolitical and security concerns comes on the top. China has huge concern on any of the infrastructure projects in Nepal. I'll give you one example. After 1962 war, China wanted to have road connectivity from Pathlaya to Birganj, which is till the Indian border. China just wanted to support that road because that was a gateway to Nepal. China wanted to construct it free, but later on, Indian government pressurized Nepal to cancel it, and India made it for free. So it was with
Oh,
India. Another project, Nepal wanted to have road connectivity on the western Nepal, which is on Uttarakhand side. So Nepal government asked India for support. India did not have enough economic leverage at the time. So Nepal got loan from certain banks, international bank, and we got Chinese contractor. Later on, India asked us to cancel that project because it was a Chinese contractor. India made that road for free. In fact, India paid fine to the Chinese company because they had already worked. So when it comes to cross-border connectivity, be it towards north or south, India has huge concerns. That's why that is one major reason. Second is geographical and environmental constraints because of difficult terrain. If China was on the south, we could have a huge railway network, even with resistance from India. If India was on the other side. So
right.
apart from the geopolitical compass, it's also the topography that makes it complicated for Nepal to have connectivity with China. Even if Nepal wants, it's not possible because of the difficult terrain. So then we have lots of natural disasters. Suppose we have flood, we have landslide, we have frequent earthquake. Now, even if we put huge amount of money to connect Kathmandu to China through railway, now it's a seismic zone. Huge mountains are there. So we need huge number of bridges, tunnels in a seismic zone. It's very complicated. So geographical and environmental constraints are there. Obviously economic constraints are equally there, and third can be economic and policy coordination. Like sometimes we don't have economic leverages. At the same time, like with India, we want to develop, both sides want to develop, but there are lack of policy coordination that also makes it complicated. So I think the three major would be: one, security; second can be geographical and economic constraints, geographical and environmental concerns; and third can be economic and policy considerations. There are three major challenges that we face today in order to have cross-border connectivity at the moment.
And how do you think that these challenges can be addressed?
I think Nepal should be able to take both the neighbors into confidence, which is not so easy task. Nepal should be able to assure India that when we are having connectivity with China, it's for economic benefit, and it's not to challenge India's preeminent position that is there in Nepal, and not to hurt India's security. So Nepal should assure India about its security concern. Nepal should assure that Nepalese soil will not be used against India. It will not allow any third country to use Nepalese soil against India. That is one. Second is they need to have a policy coordination and economic viability. Maybe both the countries should work together and see the opportunity that arise in the country. Then I think that can be resolved. Coming back to environment and all, the countries are working on that. Obviously, that is concern, but it's more on one, security, where Nepal really has to win hearts of India, take India into confidence. Second is to make a favorable environment for India, so that India finds Nepal as a favorable place for economic engagement, and then it can put their money, and then it can have policy coordination that can make it easier to have cross-border connectivity. So I think both the countries should work on these two fronts.
That's a very sort of a positive way of looking at it. We are running out of time, but let me ask you one quick question. That since we are talking connectivity, you have India's Act East policy, which sort of looks eastwards, from the northeastern states right down to Southeast Asia, maybe all the way to the Indo-Pacific. Of course, right now it's blocked because of the issues in Myanmar, but the plan is still there. Would Nepal benefit from, getting into that grid somehow? And is Nepal, looking forward to that kind of a grid opening up? Will that help Nepal in some ways? If there was, let's say, a route connected right through India's northeast, all the way, through Myanmar into, let's say all the way into the Indo-Pacific, actually.
Yes. I think Nepal sees immense potential towards the south. When India has Act East and Look East, I think Nepal also, because our economy is so integrated, our faith are integrated, that if India looks south, we have to look south because of such a strong economic engagement. Second is that our future also lies on the south, because the future is in water. Indo-Pacific region has huge potential. There's vast resources. The future of trade is through water. Land is very expensive. Again, on the north, we have the world's most complicated Himalayas. So I think our fate is also to look at south. Through BIMSTEC, that is what we want to explore. BIMSTEC provides Nepal opportunity to connect with the southern side of Asia, which is Southeast Asia. So Nepal is a part of BIMSTEC. Nepal want to not only have a strong engagement with India, but also with Myanmar and Thailand, which is connected to the Southeast Asia.
Right.
Second is that when even in the past, when India, China, Myanmar, and Bangladesh were talking about BCIM corridor. At the time, we also advocated Nepal should also be part of BCIM, because if you talk about BCIM, it's a lower circle. If Nepal is a part of that, they can also complete upper circle, which is from Kunming to Lhasa to Kathmandu. So right now they're talking about. So that is what Nepal is open to any kind of connectivity project, because if there is one country that can benefit most from connectivity, it's Nepal. Nepal needs a strong connectivity rather than India, because India had access to ocean. But Nepal really needs a strong connectivity because it's trapped between two major economic powers, but we are not getting the benefits. We are between two largest economy of Asia, the fastest growing economies of the world, but Nepal is so underdeveloped. The reason is that we don't have connectivity. There is no way for economic development or economic prosperity to come to Kathmandu, either from Beijing or from Delhi. And the reason is that we are not between two big countries. We are between the poorest part of India and poorest part of China. And if you are able to break that, if you are able to break that insulator, which stops economic development to come, if we are able to do that through connectivity, then we'll be having Delhi as our neighbor, we'll be having Calcutta as our neighbor, we'll be having Chandu, Guangzhou as a neighbor. So we really desire connectivity projects. It is in our best interest. So we are open to all kind of connectivity projects that can bring economic development to them.
Let's hope that happens very quickly, because I think the way things are going, if Myanmar gets resolved, I think things will start moving. So I'm afraid we must end this conversation now because we've run out of time. But I look forward to having you again on our show. Particularly, I'd like to talk to you about China. I remember having an interesting conversation with you long ago on China and India. Thank you so very much for joining us, sir. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much for
I
your
hope to
question.
see you again soon. That was Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, a research director at the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, talking to us about connectivity between India and Nepal and where we are headed. I do hope you enjoyed this particular episode of The Gist. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till we meet again, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing out.